Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing another missing persons case because I like filming them and researching them and doing all that good stuff. I have literally printed off, like, when I say printed off, I mean I wrote this myself, okay? I have researched, and the date on this is Sunday the 8th of October, so I literally did this on Sunday, and this video is not going to go up till maybe next Wednesday. I might do this as like a weird Wednesday situ, but I don't know at the moment. This is a really interesting case. I don't know how long this video is going to be, so I'm really sorry in advance. If you aren't already, subscribe to my channel, give this video a thumbs up, just, you know, for that optimism that it's going to be a good video. There's quite a lot to get through, so yeah. Let's get started. To begin with, this case is about a missing person called Nicholas Barkley. So, Nicholas Barkley was born on December 31st, 1980 to his mother, Beverly Dollarhide. He was the youngest in his family, and when he disappeared he was 13, and he disappeared in 1994. So he was the youngest in his family. He had an older sister and an older brother. They were called Carrie and Jason. I think I'm right. He lived, and their whole family lived, in San Antonio, Texas. He was known in the community as a troubled boy, and obviously I don't know him, didn't know him, don't know his family. I'm from England. But everyone said that he was occasionally physically violent, verbally abusive towards his mum, and the police have been called various times because his mum couldn't control him. He often skipped school and was usually in trouble whenever he went out. And he already had a juvenile criminal record, which is what they give to children in the States, I believe, and that was for stealing a pair of shoes. He'd also threatened one of his teachers and broken into a convenience store. So at the age of 13, I think that's pretty impressive. My brother is 12 and he does algebra, plays Xbox, and yeah, I just find this strange for a young child. So obviously he had some things going on in his life. I don't know if there was a father around. I did my research, but I couldn't find anything, and it seemed to me that his mum, Beverly, was a single mother, so props to her. But yeah, he was a troubled teen. Another fact which I thought I'd include, which isn't like that relevant, obviously identifying him it will be relevant, but at only 13 he'd had 3 illegal tattoos. I'll put a picture of him on screen now so you can get an idea of what he looked like at that age. And yeah, he'd had tattoos and things, so it's pretty extroverted, confident young boy. To the day of the disappearance. On June 13th, 1994, Nicholas's mother gave him $5 to go out and play with his friends at a local skate park. I don't actually know if it was like that local. I think it was a couple miles away, but not like too far that they couldn't walk. He'd been out for a few hours and he called his mum to come and pick him up because, I don't know, he wanted to come home. And his brother picked up the phone, Jason, and he said, I'm not going to wake mum up, because their mum worked night shifts and so would sleep in the day. And he said, I'm not going to wake mum up to come and get you. You walk there, you can walk back. And Nicholas didn't come home that day. It's also, I feel, important to note that he did have a court hearing the next day, so June 14th, which was to decide whether he would stay living with his family or be put into a rehabilitative centre. So yeah, that could be a contributing factor, because obviously if he felt like he was being pressured or forced into something he didn't want to do, then he wanted to run away. But we'll get on to that more. Because of the fact that his court hearing was the next day, when they called the police, when the family called the police were slow to respond, because they thought, you know, he has a court hearing tomorrow, he's obviously just gone off on one, like disappeared, didn't want to be involved, the usual teenager thing. And because he was known for erratic behaviour, they kind of just assumed he's just gone off on one again. It's important to note that when he disappeared, he had quite noticeable clothing on. He was carrying a pink backpack and wearing purple pants when he was last seen. And as far as I've like researched, he didn't take any other clothing with him, like he hadn't packed a bag or anything. It was just like his usual, like going out with his mates kind of situation. I feel like it's also important to note that in September of the year that he went missing, his brother Jason placed a phone call to the police, and he said that Jason had turned up at their house and was causing havoc, like trying to break into the garage, being really reckless. But when the police turned up, he wasn't there. So that's under a lot of scrutiny at the moment because they don't know whether Jason was telling the truth, and we'll get onto that again. Police in San Antonio, and this is where it gets interesting. Police in San Antonio received a call from a man working in a youth shelter in a place called Linares. I don't know if I'm saying that right, I'll put it on screen. Linares. That's in Spain. And this phone call was made in October of 1997. The man on the phone said that he had news that Nicholas Barkley had been found alive, and he had escaped a child sex ring run by high-ranking European political and military officials, and it was believed that he had been abused for the last 3 years, but he was alive and relatively healthy. And during his time in Europe, he had even learned French, as well as the basics of a few other European languages. They sent Carey to fly to Spain to identify him, and at first he was offish, quiet, didn't want to see her in case she didn't recognize him, because obviously, you know, things happen. But eventually she started talking to him, memories started coming back, and he was happy to go home with her. They did do photo identification and it was all cleared, and he went home to his family. So after this, the police started to notice weird differences, if you will. When Nicholas went missing, he had blue eyes, and when he came back, he had brown eyes. When Nicholas went missing, he had dark brown hair, and his hair was more so black at this point. And they also noted that his complexion was completely different. I'll put a picture side by side now on the screen of the two images. One before he went missing, which was 3 years. Like, there was a 3-year gap. He went missing, 3 years later he turned up, and I'll put those pictures side by side for you guys to have a look at, and the differences are insane. But what's weird is that the family believed that it was him, even though his personality was different. He didn't like to be touched, he was very standoffish. Police were kind of like stumped because the family really believed that it was him, but then the police had all these contradicting pieces of evidence which didn't fit. Another thing that I'm quite confused about, because I tried to Google this, obviously when Nicholas went missing he had those 3 tattoos, and I'm just wondering whether he had them when he came back, but we'll get into that more. The police were like so suspicious that they hired a private investigator to analyze pictures of 13-year-old Nicholas and the newfound Nicholas to compare their ears, because, and I did some research on this, but ears are actually supposed to be like fingerprints because they do not change. Obviously once you're, like when you're growing, they get bigger or whatever, like you don't have baby ears, but their prints, like, I'm looking at my ears right now getting really like self-conscious. Your ears don't change basically is what I'm trying to get at. And the investigator found that Nicholas and the Nicholas that came home didn't have the same ears. So that provided a ton of suspicion. However, the family stayed true to their word and they were like, yes, this is Nicholas, he's home, he's fine, we are so happy, that kind of thing. After like the struggle that they went through and disputes from Nicholas's family, a court ordered fingerprints and DNS to be taken, and it actually turned out that it wasn't Nicholas Barkley, but it was a 20-year-old French-born citizen called Frederick Borden, and I'll put that on screen now. He claimed he had been raised without any love or affection and was actually found to have taken up the identifiers of up to 500 missing people in his entire life. And this is where it gets even weirder, and I'm not just going to breeze over the fact that this dude has imitated missing people and has messed with the heads of so many grieving families for so long, because he is in prison now. I believe he's doing a 6-year sentence, but it just baffles me. But what's crazier is that despite being told that this wasn't Nicholas, the family still believed it was him, and they fought with the police. Literally, they tried to keep him in their family, and that's what I find strange. Obviously, they're so overjoyed to have him back, even though it's not him. and they want to keep him, and obviously there's lots of psychological elements to this as well that we don't understand necessarily because we're not in their heads, but it's just crazy to think that they wanted to keep him in their family. I read in an article that investigators changed their view from grieving to suspicious because obviously there was no reason for them to keep this Frederick guy in their home, and he was going to prison anyway. The police also noted that the only plausible reason that they would want to keep this imposter in their home was if they had something to hide, which is what we'll get into now. Now, going back to the phone call that Jason, who is Nicholas's older brother, made to the police in 1994, it was noted that it had a lot of similarities to phone calls that had actually been made in many other murder cases, which is where someone will kill someone else and then to throw the police off track, they will pretend that they've gone missing and make a phone call to the police saying they've seen them, which is very similar to how Jason said that Nicholas came back to the house and was trying to destroy everything, because then it threw the police off and they believed that they really were looking at a missing persons case rather than a murder case. So what we're alluding to here is that actually he didn't go missing and that somehow Jason is involved in the death of his brother Nicholas. I also have a quote here from Frederick Warden, who said to the police actually when he was interviewed, and because they were questioning him about the family, because now their suspicions were on the family, they needed some backup for their beliefs. Sorry, my phone keeps going off. He said to the police, "They killed him. Some of them did it, some of them knew about it, and some of them choose to ignore it. I wasn't worried about Nicholas coming back no more." And that's why he took over the identity, because he had a feeling that Nicholas wouldn't be coming back just because of the way the family were acting. So that added to the suspicion for the police, I guess, because now they've got a family who really wants him. And Frederick actually told the police that instead of encouraging to remember things, they would literally tell him things to say to the police to make the police believe that he had these memories of living with them when he was younger, and to make it seem a whole lot more plausible that he was actually Nicholas. When it was clear to Frederick that he wasn't going to get away from any incrimination or sentencing, basically, he called the police and he genuinely told them that Nicholas Barkley had been murdered. Before the police could go and interview the family, it was announced that Jason Barkley had killed himself. It's still unsure whether it was actually suicide, but he did take a drug overdose, and so no matter what happens now, Jason is dead, so he can't be questioned regarding the phone call or regarding Nicholas's disappearance. Okay, so recap. Jason is sadly passed away. We don't really know much about that, whether it was suicide, whatever, or accidental. But the case has pretty much gone cold. There's been no more evidence, Nicholas hasn't been found, or he hasn't come home, and so the mum and sister are just completely, obviously, distraught, grieving, and yeah, it's a horrible case to talk about, and I just found it so fascinating because we've got this sociopath who's imitating and fraudulently taking over the identities of missing people. Not just Nicholas, but 500 others. We also have the distraught family of a missing child. Despite all of his flaws, every child has flaws, he's missing and his family don't have him. He doesn't have a home. He may even have sadly passed away. We don't know why, we don't know how. And it's just sad altogether, and I hate to end this video on a sad note, but I thought you guys would find this interesting. So yeah, if you have any information regarding Nicholas Barkley, I will leave a link down below for the centre that takes tips on missing people's cases. But yeah, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and yeah, I will see you next time, guys. Bye!